Hello.
Hey there.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Wow. We are getting somewhere. Why can't let's say I've pressed something. I'll click here to join meeting.
Okay.
Okay, we're there.
Okay, we're good. Okay, looking good. So you obviously put the lipstick on this morning. That's great. I haven't put any lipstick on, but I did shave this morning, so it's good.
You know, you should try lipstick. It's amazing.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it feels quite
Uh-huh.
good. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to do one setting I need to do, which is preferences. I did 2 tests yesterday because what do we get here? Recording. Good. Okay, we're great. To record separate audio file for each participant. So that's my audio technician outsourced has actually recommended that.
Great. Can you hear me clearly just like that? Or do you need me to have the mic closer?
No, you sound really, really good.
Great.
You sound really, really good. And how do I sound? Good?
You sound good.
Okay, all right. So you're up tomorrow. I'm looking forward to catching up. So
I might have to cancel tomorrow.
Okay,
because
all
my
right.
main meeting has been moved to next week.
Okay, no problem. Just let us know. All right, cool.
Yep.
All right. So what we're going to do is I've been recording all the time here because it starts automatically when I start. So the editor will fix that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce you, and then we'll get into the interview. So that's what we're going to do.
Awesome.
So that's right. Let's go. So welcome to Jeff Willis' show. And today I've got a guest, Mellissah Smith, and I've really been looking forward to interviewing her. I met Mellissah about 18 months ago in Las Vegas. We weren't getting married. There was no chapel, in Las Vegas. But she happened to be a fellow Aussie who I'd never met before. And I'd met a lot of the Americans, but haven't met the Aussie in the room, and that was Mel. So it was a pleasure to meet her. So let me introduce her before we get to sit down and have a bit of a chat about this awesome serial entrepreneur. So a little bit about Mel. Mel is a serial entrepreneur with more than 25 years experience in marketing. Now, that's a generation. And as the founder of international marketing consulting firm Marketing Eye, a company that is acknowledged as being in the top 10 marketing consulting firms in the US, Mellissah has disrupted the way in which companies develop marketing strategies by automating the process through AI and machine learning. She started a company just recently called Robotic Marketer, in which she is also the founder and managing director. So over the last 25 years, Mel has also become an influencer in marketing and entrepreneurship, regularly making the top 100 list for everything from marketers to follow to top entrepreneurs. So Mellissah is also the editor of Marketing Eye magazine, a media commentator, a podcaster, and a journalist. Welcome to the show, Mel. It's so great to have you on here. I've been wanting to arrange this for quite a while. So,
Thank you, Jeff.
So can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you originally to become an entrepreneur, to get into business?
I absolutely can. I have a really interesting story because I had no dreams of owning my own business. I am not a naturally born entrepreneur. I'm not one of those stories where I was a kid selling newspapers on weekends or anything like that. When I was 25 years of age, an opportunity came past my desk to start a business. And I thought long and hard about it because it wasn't something that was in my dreams. But the opportunity was too good to refuse. And I could see how I could make, $1 million in 12 months, which for me at 25 years of age, and if you kind of go back a few decades and realize the value of that money at that point in time, it really was an opportunity too good to refuse. So if opportunity knocks, you've really got to take it. And my second business was when I was 30 years of age. And what was really interesting about that is, rather than just start a business because what's in front of me, I looked at the next 10 years. What would that actually look like for me? What was I trying to achieve? my first business required me to be part of the parcel. So nobody did business with the company unless I was involved in the transaction. And as we know, we can't scale a business doing that. And I really wanted to scale a business. I wanted to have a business that didn't rely on me, that if I went on holidays, no one would actually care. So I started Marketing Eye, which is an international marketing consulting firm. And I built it so that clients bought the brand and not the person. Mm-hmm. And I built it out in a way that was not just an outsourced marketing department. And if you can remember 20 years ago, an outsourced marketing department wasn't a big thing. It wasn't what everyone was doing. Yes, we had an ad agency and yes, we had a PR agency, but we didn't have this concept of an outsourced marketing department. So I built out the outsourced marketing department and set up a formula around that. I also started a magazine alongside that so that my clients could have a voice in the media. So you know how hard it is sometimes to get media attention. I thought, well, let's change that up. Let's create our own voice.
So you were basically becoming a content marketer before the term was even invented.
Absolutely, yes, very much so. And then I, started licensing the model, and I did a whole heap of other things. And that really was about the next 10 years of my life at that point in time. And to be honest, I thought I'd start a family and get married and do all these wonderful things and have a white picket fence. Although that's not really for me. And I soon learned that. That was what that business was set up to do. In my 40s, things changed. I realized, I'm sure you've been in this spot before, where you've been in an industry for so long. I started writing scripts on a typewriter.
Right.
Not a computer.
Wow. Okay.
We were doing ads, using bromides. Yep. So very, very different to where we are today. And so I thought, well, what am I leaving this industry with? What have I done to significantly change the industry? And in truth, at that point in time, nothing. I was doing too much of what other people were at that point in time doing. And so I had a good hard look at, my knitting, which is, a marketing department. How can I make a marketing department run more efficiently and effectively? I knew a lot about technology. I'd been in that industry for 20 years at that point. And I literally looked at, how can we use AI, software robotics, machine learning, big data to actually streamline the processes of marketing.
So what you're doing basically was you had identified the trends that you think were going to impact your industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that weren't necessarily used in the way that we're using them today.
Yep.
And so, I realized that what marketers needed was an ability to know more and understand more and have it at their fingertips. And so, we're really strong in marketing strategy. As you mentioned in my bio, we're in the top 10 companies in marketing strategy consulting in the US. So I started with that. And how do we make a marketing strategy better? And I built this company called Robotic Marketer, which is literally my legacy to the industry. It's the thing that I'm most proud of. And it is, it really has disrupted the way that we do marketing strategies. We can now do them without a human involved. And that is a quantum leap from a marketing perspective, but it also is smarter than I could ever do. Now, I've got 28 years experience in marketing, yet I can't write a marketing strategy as good as my software.
So how long ago did you start that? Like, when was the first time you said, okay, we're going to write this, we're going to get some coders in, and we're going to get really clever and use AI and machine learning to do it? So when was the concept born in terms of timing?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Or just over 3 years ago. I actually walked through Queensland University of Technology's robotics department as part of some philanthropy work that I was doing. And, I was looking at robots that were built for farms, totally different. But I walked out of this meeting so inspired, and I thought, well, how are robots used in marketing? And then obviously the picture goes to your head that there's robots sitting at desks and coding away or writing away. But, if you give it a lot more thought and you think about, well, what have you built? What sort of machine learning have you established over time? And how could that be utilized for the future so that, the technology can learn from something? I was able to do that. So 3 years ago was the big moment, and it's taken 3 years to really build this powerful technology suite.
Right. So this is rather interesting, is it? With machine learning, you actually mentioned something that's very, very important, in that you need the data for the machine to learn.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is we've been writing marketing strategies in exactly the same format for 16 years. So imagine, we haven't changed the format.
Yep.
And the other thing we have done, and we only did it so that we didn't make errors internally, is we recorded every single workshop we've ever done.
Right.
So we had machine learning, which, other companies won't have that. And that really allowed us to build something that was unique.
Right. So let's go back to when you originally started the business. The challenge for most of us is what gave the inspiration to really, what drove you from day one to actually get into business and start this journey?
So when I was 25, what drove me was just an opportunity.
Right.
And,
you saw the numbers. So you said, I can make $1 million from this. I couldn't do that just having a job. Were you employed at the time?
I was employed at the time, and I had a great job. But I realized that it was an opportunity and that I should take it, and I had nothing to lose. Now, I think at 25, you're too young to own a marketing agency because you don't have the breadth of knowledge. You don't have the experience. You haven't got the failures and the successes under your belt that you can actually learn from. So, in hindsight, really dumb idea. But for me, that journey was made easier because I had certain skills that companies wanted.
Okay. So what do you think? So you start this journey. What were some of the biggest challenges that confronted you along the way?
I think a lot of challenges confront us when we're starting a business. Money wasn't one of them, which is interesting because I was able to make money from day one. And that's, a really good, fortunate position to be in. But, people, hiring the right people, somebody who sits down and you interview them and you take them on face value, when you put them actually in a job, it might be totally different. And marketing is subjective. People might have done a marketing degree, for instance, and they may sit down and go to write a marketing strategy and have never written a marketing strategy or have no idea how to write a marketing strategy because nobody taught them at university. Or maybe they learnt once, but they've forgotten. Likewise with other disciplines within marketing. So I think that was really one of the biggest challenges I found for the entire duration of being in business, that you really don't know how good someone is until they actually start working for you.
Yep.
I think another really big challenge is life. And I'm sure you can appreciate this, Jeff. We go through different stages in life. In our 20s, everything's exciting, shiny, when opportunity comes past our desk, we're over the moon. By the time you get a decade down the road, those same opportunities, you see them differently. And certainly 2 decades down the road, you see it very differently. And I think, whether people are getting married or wanting a different life or thinking, well, what else is out there? I think we have all these challenges in life that impacts the way we do business or the decisions we make in business. And I think that's a really hard thing to navigate. And they say you can't have it all at once. And I believe that's actually true. It's very hard to have it all. And that's a constant challenge for any business person. And I don't think that's gender specific.
Yeah, it is a real challenge. And I think one of the, I did my teaching degree, and when I went to start teaching, I realized I knew nothing. And I think what you've done is pretty indicative of, I think, where most entrepreneurs come from, is they learn by doing.
Yes.
We don't know what we don't know. University quite often is just a ticket. Yes, it helps us to understand ways of thinking and the discipline, but certainly for me, and observing you and the conversations we've had in the past, is that you've just leapt in and done it. So quite often along the way, we need help and guidance. A little bit like Yoda was to Luke Skywalker, really. So the inspiration is one thing. Okay, you saw an opportunity and leapt at it. Who were your mentors along the way? And also we'll get into some other things, that resources and that have helped you as well. You're big on mentors, I know that. And so can you tell me a bit more about mentors and what they've meant to you over the years?
Yeah, definitely. So mentors can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, and you have them for different reasons. People can also guide you for, a short time, and that's really helpful to that journey that you're on. But, I've been the most fortunate person on the planet. My mentors are phenomenal human beings at every single level. One of my mentors, and I suppose he's my main mentor, is a gentleman by the name of Jack Cowan. So for people in Australia, you'd know who he is. He owns Hungry Jack's and is a majority shareholder of Domino's and hundreds of other businesses. He's this phenomenal businessman, and I have the fortunate position where he's been my mentor now for nearly 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so a really long time. I always say to people, I knew him when he was only worth 150 million, and now he's worth lots of billions of dollars. So I've also seen him on a journey, which is kind of funny in itself. But he is phenomenal because he tells me the hard truths, and he pulls me back constantly from doing things that could potentially send me in the wrong direction. One of these great sayings is, the new girl is always prettier than the girl you took to the dance. And
Right.
ain't that true?
Yes.
And so in business, sometimes, we're going along in business, we're building our company, getting to the next stage, and then we have this bright idea. We go, let's go off and do this. And it takes us away from that business that's our bread and butter, that has probably more opportunity in it than this new shiny toy. And we're able to make more money out of it long term, and there's a lot more benefit in it. And I think he's a man that really lives by that, because if you look at Hungry Jack's, he's been with Hungry Jack's, he could have sold it off, he could have done a lot of other things, but he stayed with it, and look where he is today. But for us as entrepreneurs, we're constantly looking at that new shiny toy, because we're full of ideas and we're excited about new things that we can do, and we're marketers. You and I are marketers. So there's a new thing, TikTok's around. Do we just jump onto TikTok? Yes, we need to know what it is. Yes, we need to know how to use it in marketing. But is it right for you and I to build our influencer brand per se on TikTok? Probably not.
It's the demographics are a little different, so it's usually
they'd be very bored with us, I think.
It's sort of like 10-year-olds to maybe 25-year-olds, and I actually have an account, by the way.
I do too.
But
never used it.
Yeah, so I haven't done my first video yet, but you can't ignore a trend, and also any trend that looks like that grows the phenomenon. I think it's only been around 3 years. And I think it's approaching 1 billion, it might even be over 1 billion users. And it also uses a lot of AI and machine learning as it captures data from its users, which is one of the fundamental differences. It positions itself as being in that social media marketing space. So Jack's been a fabulous mentor to you. And not many people have that privilege, and you must feel really honored to have met him. So how did you get to meet Jack originally? How did that happen?
I was fortunate to be part of an association called the Young Entrepreneurs Association, which is now the EO Network, when I was in my early 20s. And I met Jack through that. He was in WPO, which is the people that mature past young presidents into the more mature group, or the more experienced group. And I just met him at a networking event. I was very lucky because at the time there were very few women in the association.
Yep.
And I think there was 3 in Australia or 3 in Sydney at that point in time. And, I was in charge of the mentorship program. So of course I picked the best.
Yep.
Another mentor that I got out of that program was a guy by the name of Peter Ivany, and everyone's heard of the brand Hoyts, right? He is the guy that really built Hoyts into being, all through the US, all through Australia, and really expanding it at a phenomenal rate. He sold that business to Packer for $1.6 billion many years ago. But he was also my mentor, and mentors teach you different things. Jack teaches me about life, he teaches me about business, he teaches me about people, and he's also a great shoulder to cry on because he really deals with situations very, very well. But Peter taught me one, how to make money, how to play the stock market, which was great.
Right.
But he also always a good thing to do. But he also taught me about the fact that no matter how successful you are, you're still dealing with the same shit. You're still dealing with people, you're still dealing with money, you're still having days where you're going to be anxious, overwhelmed, etc. And I think that was a really good lesson to learn because it makes you less lonely.
Yes, it's good to have those sort of people in your corner that can help you navigate this journey of life and business, which is essentially life. It's a game you're playing, which is the game of making money. And this life we live in is certainly something I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. So how do you balance life, or your personal life and business? Because that's a struggle many entrepreneurs have. Some are workaholics, and that becomes a real problem. And if they have a failure, that can tip them over into darkness. And I've seen that happen in front of me, and it can be devastating. So how do you manage? Because there's a lot of loneliness in being an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons we hang out is because we're doing business on our own essentially, but we need other people around us to support us and help. So it doesn't mean we've got a team around us, but how do you balance? And this is a conversation we've had over a glass or two of wine, and in Las Vegas as well as in Sydney and Melbourne. So how do you balance that?
I think it's incredibly hard to balance, and I go through waves where I've balanced it really well and other waves where I haven't. A great book to read is The Rockefeller's Habit, and you're mentioning what resources do you actually use as an entrepreneur and what helps you. One of them is The Rockefeller's Habit, and it teaches you to work on your business, not in your business. So every time I'm working on my business, I can take as many holidays as I need. I can turn up to work at any time in the day, and it really doesn't matter. The minute I start working in my business, that whole equation changes. So, I read that book every time I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I'm doing it wrong. And I think that's a good refresher to go, okay, how do I pick myself up out of that to be working on the business and not in the business? And at one stage when I just had Marketing Eye, I was having up to 3 months holiday a year. That's a pretty great position to be in. Now I have no fun and no exciting holidays, and I'm really under the pump. And the reason is I am working in my business. I have a new startup. It is a new way of thinking. I am very old to be in a startup, I feel, because, you just don't have that energy that you once had. And you're also more cautious. Like, I am so much more cautious than I've ever been in my life, because I have so much more to lose. I'm at a different stage in my life.
Yeah. When you're in your 20s, you've got the future in front of you. You've got plenty of time. So if you make a mistake, you've got plenty of time to recover. So, and also you're starting with, a blank slate. So you don't have the complications, and you've got the time, and you've got the energy. And I think that's one of the other things that a lot of the 20, 30s somethings actually bring to the table is that incredible energy and drive, because they've got time in their hands and they've got a blank slate, and they're willing to think blue sky. So it is a challenge. And
it definitely is. It's a huge challenge. And it's kind of good because it reinvigorates you in some way, but you really do have to roll up your sleeves. I'm back working 7 days a week. I'm not going to lie about that. It's not the ideal position to be in, but I do have a startup. I have something that, you know, drains a lot of money on a monthly basis that's coming out of my back pocket. You know, when you have a tech company, there's lots of developers that you have to employ, and without them, you don't have a product. So, you know, going through those phases of, you know, putting the investment there, making sure that you are wearing many hats. Now, I'm lucky. I have a bigger business in my other companies. So I have, you know, 2 internal accountants and, you know, HR and all the things that you need to have in a business, that are resources that I can grab. But when it comes to robotic marketer, there's so many more things that I'm doing that I probably haven't done for a lot of years. And I know that I have to do it. The other thing is, you know, at times when you've got a startup, no matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, is that you almost feel like giving up. You go, well, is this worth it? And I remember sitting with my accountant just last week going, you know, and I don't mean to be crass, remember how rich we were 3 years ago? Right. Remember how much money we had? And that's a really crass statement to say, but it's in context to when you're running a startup, you know, you feel so poor and you're putting all your money and all your efforts and all your energy and into this startup, and you're grabbing from other people. You know, I know that I've rung you for advice from time to time to do with my startup, because it's almost like you need more advice than ever before. You need to be surrounded with people that you see as being so much more smarter than you are, so that you can really pick out the best of the best to roll out a plan that's actually going to work for you and help you be more successful.
Yeah, so this raises another question that you raise is a lot of startups is a mix of using their own money. Quite often it's using other people's money. What's your thinking on that? Because I know that you've put a lot of your money into your own money into that. Now, when do you, and there's no right or wrong on this. I've been involved in a startup in New Zealand for a while, and the Shuttle Rock, and there was a combination of both the CEO and the founder's money as well as investors. So how do you balance that? What's Jack say about this?
He says raise money early, and I'm a person who sat on my hands a lot. So the position I'm in right now is all of my own doing. Having said that, I do have a small investor, Steven Jackson. He's a former NFL player in the US. And I had some, you know, sort of that family friends type of money from him put in. Obviously that's long since run out, and it's really, you know, me supporting the business at this point in time. But I think why I've done it differently is I am a mature age person. I do have some money behind me, and I felt that I wanted to make sure this worked. And then when I took on investors, I'm very ethical about, you know, what return on investment they're actually going to get, because that's my reputation. You know, your reputation doesn't mean as much to you in your 20s as it does when you're hitting 50, right? So, you know, I want to make sure that at every single step of the equation, I'm being extremely ethical. And my idea of ethics is different to everybody else's, but mine, you know, really that not only the deals in place, that we're actually rolling them out. And yes, we have significant deals with our company. So we have an amazing pipeline in front of us, but I want to see them rolling out and in play and fix any of the issues that come along the way before I take in that big investment. And, you know, we'll be looking at, you know, the 20 million plus investment in our next round. So, you know, I want to do it in that way. Is that the right way to do it? Probably not. You know, everybody said to me, use somebody else's money, and they're totally right. And I don't know the answer of why I didn't jump on that faster.
Yeah, I have heard of people that have used everyone else's money, been founders. I remember having a meeting a few years ago. It was a dinner, and I met a founder of $1 billion business that lost it all because the politics that got involved with outside investors coming in and changing the company culture.
Yeah.
Um, so it was able to scale, but he lost total control and ended up with nothing. And that,
Oh,
I
wow.
suppose, is one of the potential risks of using other people's money if you're not careful.
Mm.
And so um, the other thing that you mentioned before, which is you're working on the business and in the business. And also one of the things you identified very early on, which a lot of people that are just one-man bands don't realize is, and the question you raised, which I thought a lot of entrepreneurs need to understand, is how to scale. So,
Yes. Really important.
so you started this pretty early by the sounds of it. So what are some of the things you need to take into account when you want to scale your business?
When you want to scale your business, number one, you need to work on the business, not in it. So that's the most important thing that you need to take home from this podcast is work on the business, not in the business. The second thing about scaling is you need to treat it like a franchise. You need to make sure you have every single policy, every single procedure, training manuals, how to develop your staff, performance review forms, the whole lot at your disposal in a working order long before you look at scaling. Make sure every single thing is in place, because then when you scale, it's very, very simple. The other thing is, and I can refer back to robotic marketer here, but given it's a more early stage business, looking for distribution. No matter what business you're in, look for distribution, because if you've got distribution, you've got that secret sauce. And if you do right by whoever's distributing your product or service, it means that that business will scale a lot faster than if you're just trying to do one deal at a time.
Yeah. And I see this all the time, like people that actually get a model that works and also getting access to major distributors. I know John Ferraro did it with Goldmine. Now he's with Nimble. He's now doing it with Microsoft, with LinkedIn as an acquisition of Microsoft. So you're right. And I think with Robotic Marketer, you are actually working with some of the biggest media companies and software as a service companies globally. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. So we've really identified and are working with really large Fortune 100 technology companies. I'll be clear with that. It's technology companies and media companies. There is a media company in that mix. And what they're able to do is distribute us to tens of thousands of people. Now, for a startup to be able to have that type of distribution, it's obviously amazing. It also gives us a really clear path forward, and also helps fund other initiatives. It helps fund other development of technology, because if you're developing technology and you think the product that you have today is what you're going to have in 12 months time, then you should close your doors. Seriously, that someone's going to come in and do something 10 times better. Time is really of the essence. So really developing more technology, but also we're in machine learning and AI. So what's really important is the diversity of the input of data that goes into our system. So we really need those small businesses out there to actually be using Robotic Marketer for their marketing strategies. Without them, the technology is not that great. It's too much a technology marketing strategy platform. And we don't want that. And that's not, the end game for us.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you bring up, how much you're investing in technology, and that raises another question, which is essentially in this global economy that we're in now. Because in the past, businesses, if you'd done this 30 years ago, for example, you would be just working locally in Melbourne, for example.
Yes.
Right. Now we have the opportunity with distribution, social media, email marketing, the internet. We actually have the ability to reach the world at scale. And what's really interesting, what software as, especially software as a service companies or software companies and tech companies, is it's really an arms race, isn't it, in terms of development to actually, because it's not, someone's got more money, they can go and take what you're doing and just scale it. And that's
it's a challenge. And I think what's really important is that anyone starting a technology company, that they really realize that. So with us, we keep on doing things that it'd be very hard for the big companies to come and steal at this point in time. So, and I think that comes with, you've got a founder with 28 years of experience in marketing that has ideas.
Yep.
And has ways of doing things smarter, faster, and better. So I think that's been our secret sauce for now. Hopefully I don't get hit by a bus tomorrow, Jeff. But you know, that's our secret sauce. But the truth of the matter is, you have to move fast. You have to grow fast. You have to keep on developing and innovating. And that's like any company. I don't care if you're an accounting firm, you know, a recruitment agency, or a tech company. You need to move fast. You need to keep reinventing yourself. You can't stay the same.
Yep. So really what you're summing it up, you're saying that there's really two key elements to this moving forward quickly. Number one is developing the software and innovating as quickly as possible. And that comes down to an army of developers in the technology industries. And then the other one comes down to is the actual global distribution. That's the other arms race you're up against, isn't it? Just making sure you get to market quicker, further, faster than anyone else.
Yeah, and you have to be in bed with the right people.
Yep.
So, you know, quite often small companies, you know, we're a startup. Like, let's not mistake in that fact. We are a startup. But to be in bed with these big companies, it really allows us to scale much faster. And at the moment, we're getting 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s for everything we're doing when they're rating us on every single project we do. So we're in this great position where we have these market leaders that say what we're doing is really good. So if you can, you know, sell yourself to the bigger companies or the bigger distribution partners early, that's actually going to help your business tenfold and really help protect you as much as one can be protected against competitors in the market.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now we talked about mentors, but talked about resources. So you mentioned a book. Are there any other books that have guided you over the last 25 years that you can recommend? I know for me, I'd love to hear what is the mentorship provided by a book. And for me, I love books because it really is the distillation of the wisdom of decades of experience put into a few pages. And I'm a huge reader. I have been since I was 5 and used to read late at night while parents thought I was asleep. Any other books that you would recommend to our readers? Because I think a lot of people like to go, what's some good books to read? So Mel, is there any others you'd recommend that come top of mind?
Yeah, well, obviously Rockefeller's Habit, Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And one that I think has been the most game-changing for me outside of Rockefeller's Habit would be a book that's not about business. It's called Untethered Soul. It's by Michael Singer. And it talks to me about the fact that, you know, I overthink things. You know, I have all these things going on inside my head, these conversations, you know, what would I do in this scenario? What's that person thinking? Or, you know, thinking about 10 things at once, and it clutters your judgment. It makes it harder for you to communicate. It affects the way that you work, and you will be more successful if you can clean that crap up. So Untethered Soul really teaches you that. It teaches you that you have a roommate inside your head, and you need to shut it up sometimes and turn it off. And therefore you're living in the present. You're dealing with what's in front of you, not having these extra conversations inside your head. And if you think about in life and in business, if you're able to put yourself in that position, it actually really trains you to be more productive. It trains you to really deal with the problem at hand as it is at hand and not overthink it. And I find that every time I go off track, and I do, I'm a woman, so of course I go off track and overthink things. I'm also a Virgo. So being a woman and a Virgo, I'm forever overthinking things. So I have it beside my bed, and I'll pick it up anytime I think I can't sleep because I'm overthinking stuff or I've got too much on my mind. I have it in 2 of my handbags, and I have it in every single one of my offices. And I will stop in the middle of the day and I will read a chapter just to remind myself to be disciplined and go back to that way of thinking. And it's almost like a Bible to me. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that, but at the same time, I see the benefit in it for so many other people.
Yeah, that's fantastic to know. One of the most transforming books that I ever read was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And you've just described a very similar book. And I'm going to read it after we finish this podcast. In fact, I might, go and buy it on Kindle on Amazon straight after we finish this. But The Power of Now for me was fantastic, and it can be encapsulated in a sentence: is the past is gone, you can't change it. The future doesn't exist. The only thing you've got is now. And for example, we're having a fantastic conversation right now. What's wrong with that? And it's really hard. And I remember I had some counseling about a year ago, and these conversations in our head are very interesting in that sense that they can take over your life, especially when you're in a tough time. And the name he gave to it was the evil uncle. He said, if the evil uncle knocked on your front door and came into your house and told you out loud what you're telling yourself in your head, you would tell them to get out of town, to get out of your home. And yet we allow these conversations to happen. And I totally get it. It's just, it's great. And
you really wanted to swear then, didn't you?
I did, actually. I was on the verge.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well,
getting called out.
Well, this is our first episode, so I'm just
You're being clean.
I'm gently dancing around the roses here, and we might take it to a whole new level in the future. But and one of the reasons I asked you to be on the show, number one, as it's my first show, I'm a little nervous because this is my first adventure into podcasting. I put it off for nearly 4 years. I've had the boom and the mic and all the gear ready to go in my cupboard for 4 years. So if you want to talk about procrastination, just come and see me. I'm an expert procrastinator. But here we are. We're doing it now in all its glorious imperfection. But and one of the reasons I actually invited you on the show too is, as a female entrepreneur, I want to encourage 50% of the world to actually bring their wisdom and empathy. And that is the ladies and the women of the world that I think we need to encourage to step into the light. And it's one of the major reasons I invited you, as well as being a great friend. And I knew you'd be kind to me if we didn't get the podcast sort of working, which we had a little trial recently, which didn't quite work out. But here we are. And
on that topic of women and women taking other women with them, I don't know if you ever get an opportunity to read my tweets. You're probably too busy and too famous on Twitter to see my little old tweets. But I'm a big believer that, I've had so much time being in marketing and having so many opportunities, public speaking and being on television and radio and media and all the rest of it. That now it's time for others to stand up. And when I get given an opportunity now, I quite often turn around to somebody else I know that maybe a competitor, might be in marketing, and say, hey, I've just been given this opportunity. Would you like to do it? Because I think your story would be great for that audience.
Yep.
So I think more women in business need to be confident in what they've accomplished. Mm-hmm. And also realize that if we're really going to do something significant for other women, we have to share the limelight. We have to share that time on the stage. We need to share the things that we've learned. And until we start doing that, there will not be change. You can't just expect men to change. Women need to change too.
Yep. That's fantastic. So I've been really impressed by what you've done over the last 25 years. It's been good to become friends over the last 18 months. Now, the other thing that you've raised, and you sort of hinted at it, how important are relationships in your business success? Because I came across a good friend of mine who's got a law degree, he's got an MBA, he's got a technology degree, and he wanted to be on the board of companies. And when he approached companies to do that, they said, who do you know? Yeah. Right. And he's realized that there's a very important part to business that we quite often forget. And it's the soft skills on top of the hard skills, like the hard skills of actually using technology, having the right team around you, the right resources. How important are relationships to you, Mel?
I think relationships are really important, but I probably have changed a lot over the years when it comes to relationships. I think fewer relationships is better than more.
So
And
more
it's
about
because
more about quality than quantity.
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And the other thing is, if you want to get on a board, then you need to do a bunch of different steps. You need to have a plan on how you're actually going to get on that board, or to get on boards in general. What are the things that people are looking for? And it's not just a piece of paper that says you have a degree or X amount of experience in a certain industry. They need to know who you are. The industry or the business that they're working in needs to know who you are, and you need to be able to add value to that board.
Yep.
So if you don't know the stakeholders on that board and the stakeholders in that industry, then you shouldn't be on that board. So we have to think differently about relationships and, our goals, and make sure we're actually putting plans in place to actually achieve them.
Yeah. So you're on the board of several companies, is that correct?
I am, but I don't think, long term that's something that I actually want to be part of, because obviously there's a lot of legal requirements and time requirements. To be on a board, you have to, spend a lot of time doing work for that board, and they pay you to be on board, so you need to actually do something. You can't just rock up once a month or once every quarter.
Yep.
And the second thing is that you really do need to participate in the industry of the board that you're representing. You need to really be adding value, and you should want to add value. It's not just a job. It's about making a difference to that company or that association or that charity. So I think, boards are very different in the way that you think. With networking and building relationships, when I go to a conference, for instance, well, if you want to be a speaker at a conference, quite often people that need to know who you are. So, I've had for years, been organizing conferences myself. People send their CV or ring up and say, hey, I'm famous in this particular area. You need to have me as a speaker, or I'll do it for free, or I'll do it for $5,000, or I'll do it for $10,000, whatever. And I've never heard of them. So obviously you hang up and you never call them back. Right. So that's another thing. If you want to be a speaker, then one, you need to be able to show that you are a speaker. You need to have a really good story to tell and that people want to listen to.
Yep.
And is that phone?
That's fine.
You need to have, you need to have a very good story that people want to listen to. And networking at events, we go to conferences. You and I were both at Adobe Summit in Vegas last year.
Yep.
That was fantastic. And we saw lots of people around us, even influencers, that were out networking with lots of different people. And they were going from one person to another and networking, really getting their name out there, dropping off business cards. But you and I did something very different. Yep. We probably picked 5 people and we spent quality time with those 5 people.
Yep.
And we built a real relationship that will last long after that conference. Yep. And that's tend to be the way that I operate.
Yeah, and that's something I really value as well, like just having that quality time together, you and I, to find out about, what drives us, what our lives are like, business and personal. That was, for me, I so value that. That's actually what I'm doubling down on this year. And one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is actually building quality relationships with people. I want to shine a light on them and bring them to the world. And people like yourself, Mel, it's really, there is so much genius out in this world that people have never heard of. And I think, doubling down on building quality relationships. And this is what podcasts I discovered are really about, not about, being a media company or anything. It's about, let's have a fireside chat. Let's discover what drives Mel, what wisdom she bring and share. And that's what excites me. And what you've shared with us today is just fantastic. Now, I'm just going to wrap it up here in a minute, but what are 3 things that you've learned as an entrepreneur that you think people that want to be entrepreneurs already are? What are 3 things that you think are really important that you've learned over the last 25 years as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, and obviously have a business plan, have a marketing plan in place. We all know that people that have a plan in place are more likely to achieve their goals. I think it's like 42% of people are more likely to achieve a goal that they've actually written down. So that would be number one. Have a plan in place. Don't have it all inside your head. Don't come up with ideas on the fly and hope it works. Be more strategic than that and invest your time, resources, and money much more wisely. Two would be never ever give up. Even if it's not working, don't give up. There's another way around it.
Yep.
And be open to the fact that the most successful people in the world never ever gave up. And don't sell the farm. I know that's a really hard one, and a lot of people have rags to riches stories. But if you've got a house, for instance, don't put your house on the line for a business. Find out other ways of doing it.
So what you're saying there is that using other people's money is one thing, but I suppose the thing is entrepreneurs, let's sum it up this way, is that entrepreneurs basically are all about not increasing risk or playing risky gambits, but actually reducing risk.
Yeah, definitely that. And also the fact that, it gives you comfort when you have something. You'll make better decisions because you know that you have something to fall back on. When you have nothing to fall back on and you're all getting up there in age, and I have to be ageist about this because it really is a factor. If you've got nothing to fall back on, it can be crippling. It can cripple the way that you make decisions and the way that you go on that journey in business. And you don't want that. So having just a foundation and a base to build from is really important.
Thanks. That's really great. So if we summed up the three major things, number one is persistence. The other one is a plan, and the other one is make sure that you actually have a home to go to. In other words, you've got a secure place that that if it all turns to shit, basically you've got a place that you can call home and go to that's safe and secure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's fantastic. Mel, thank you very much for sharing your insights. It's been fabulous. Been wanting to do this for a long time, and look forward to catching up next time, whether it's in Las Vegas, Melbourne, or Sydney, or somewhere else on the planet. So thank you very much for sharing, and look forward to catching up soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. That was good. Thanks, Mel.
No problem.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
It was good. I sort of had a little bit of a loose framework which was the sort of like hero's journey arc, from inspiration to the mentors to the challenges. And then the other one is, what do you bring? What's the golden grail you bring back? What have you learned from it? So we could have gone on for a lot longer. But we've done nearly 50 minutes actually. So.
Oh my gosh. Gosh. Could we break that one up? Now, what I would suggest with you is some of the parts where you were trying to phrase what you wanted to say, perhaps go back and re-record just that little part, because you are cutting it up. So you get an opportunity to re-edit. Yep. But just re-record it. No one will notice a difference. Yep. And I think that everyone does it. It's just when you're new at it, you don't necessarily remember to do it. Yeah. So this is going to be part of the learning journey, and that's what it's. So this imperfect start, and it'll continue to be imperfect, but it's really. We don't want it to be perfect because people don't actually gravitate towards perfect. No, as I said, I think texted the other day, it's more about wabi-sabi. Actually, it's the beauty in imperfection. Yeah. So which is a Japanese term, which I rather like actually. So. Yeah. Was I helpful? Did you think that you were happy with the content? It was fantastic. Yeah, I really love it. I think, some of the insights you bring, I learned a lot from it, and I think other people can learn a lot from it as well. So, it was great. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate giving me the time. So, pleasure. Well, you have a good one, and I'll call you offline later. Okay, catch up. All right. Bye. Okay, bye.